this week, the government has announced that there are going to be no more house visits, I think until November 10th, I believe. The reason I started this podcast was to meet people. I don't mean via Zoom, I mean in real life. And this studio, you can call it that, is in my house. So people come here and we have a cup of tea together. They meet my partner, my dog, now my baby, etc. And then we sit down and get to know each other and then share that conversation with you. But we can't do that. So, as it stands, as of now, what's the date today? 16th of October. This podcast is kind of on pause until then, until I'm allowed to have visitors to my house. I could do solo episodes, but I like to share other people's stories. Maybe it's because I'm not that interesting. I don't know. But yeah, I like to actually meet people. And so as it stands, this podcast is on pause, right? But it isn't going anywhere long term. I mean, I've just invested in another one of these bad boys. This is a Shure, it's a microphone, Shure SMB, something like that, SMB. But it's like the Mac Daddy. It's the bee's knees, the puppy's privates, the dogs. Yeah, it's the really good microphone. And they're like 500 quid, 500 euros. So I've just bought another one. That's because I love this medium of podcasting. I really do. I started out having big ideas, like I'm gonna have hundreds of thousands of downloads or millions of downloads, and I wanted to get millions of views, or sorry, thousands of views, shall I say, on YouTube and get loads of subscribers. But what I realized is that there are things called algorithms, and if you want to create content that's very popular, it doesn't necessarily mean it's representing you very well. What I mean is, or it's even good quality, let's say. What I mean is, say my videos get at the moment probably a couple of hundred views each, if that, sometimes less, sometimes more, and I put a lot of effort into them. Just trying to make them good quality. I don't prepare anything. I don't script anything. I don't do any heavy editing or cut anything out. But therefore, you do that, and I did get very little views. And then something like a man falling on an egg, which is what Rach showed me the other day, gets 17,000 views. Some drunk fella falling on an egg. Now, it did make me laugh, so it did give value to my life, but it was like 6 seconds on a smartphone or whatever recorded. So therefore, trying my objective, and anyone's objective, you're starting a YouTube channel, to get a lot of followers or subscribers or likes, etc. I don't think that's a good motivation to create content. I personally, I'd find that very unfulfilling. Like, I'm creating stuff just to get views, or for example, there's a website called TubeBuddy, and it's a plugin for YouTube that allows you to figure out what the best titles are to use, the best thumbnails, what the best content is to make videos about to get more people viewing you. So that means I would be creating videos just to get people watching them. I'm doing it the opposite way. I'm creating what I think is interesting, and then if people want to find that, they can. Now the plus side of that, well, to me that's the only way forward, creatively speaking, is to do what you find is interesting. And you don't need, I personally don't feel like I need thousands of people. I mean, it's great for your ego when you see the numbers going up as opposed to down, but ultimately I can't let that rule me, my ego. And one thing I said at the very start of starting this podcast was I was going to be consistent. Every single week I was going to definitely do a podcast, and I have done that, but we're in exceptional circumstances. And one thing I want to keep consistent more than frequency is the quality. Because every week, simply producing content just because you said you would, you're wasting your time and you're wasting other people's time when they could be watching or listening to something else that's going to help them. The other thing is to do a podcast, to be a guest on a podcast mainly, because my job is easy, the person asking the questions, but to be a guest takes a bit of courage. And because I've been on people's podcasts before, and it's actually very nerve-wracking when you don't know what the person's going to ask you, nothing's been scripted, and you know what you say is recorded forever and ever, for eternity. So because now we have these restrictions, and even before this, I was restricted to just Dublin, people in just Dublin. Your pool of people to choose from is very small. And so I'm really conscious of like making a promise about frequency of podcasts and then sticking to it just for the sake of it. I don't think that's a wise use of time. So even after this podcast comes off pause, which is going to be as soon as I'm allowed to have people back in the house, I'm not going to say, okay, every single week I'm going to speak to someone interesting, because that may not be the case. And I think it's important to sometimes take a step back and reassess your priorities. So mine is to keep the conversations interesting and open, you know. But I have to say, at this stage, when I look back at all the people I've spoken to, it's cool that I've met so many interesting people. And I really admire the people that come on a podcast, especially when it's videoed and will speak so openly. I wasn't going to do video initially. I was just going to, I did the audio for the first, I think, like 80 episodes. But then I had a podcast with, one of the podcasts I do with Patrick Beach. He's a well-known yoga teacher. He said, man, after we wrapped up the recording, he said, so I'm just taking a sip of water. He said, man, you should start recording these on video, because if you just put a camera there, it makes it a lot more an interesting experience for the viewer. They get to, I personally like to watch podcasts. I like to see the person. What I really love is to see the expression on the listener's face when two people are talking sometimes, you know. So I absolutely love this medium. I think that it's very refreshing, especially in a world where, as you know, like I've said before, we're getting a bit polarized now, I feel. And you've probably seen The Social Dilemma and how what even YouTube, right? God bless YouTube. But I'm putting my videos here on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, for now. I don't know what's going to be next, because YouTube are, there's no competition for them at the moment. They're massive, and you have Vimeo and etc. But in terms of things being shared, YouTube is the most common. But even on YouTube, and certain words you can't say, I believe. Like, for example, I was supposed to have a lady on called Alva Smith, who is a political analyst. How I best describe her? I can't. See, the thing is, I can't say the actual word, because supposedly you get, punished by YouTube for saying it. But maybe I can spell it out, because you know the way when you're talking about walking and your dog's around, you'll say, should we go for WALK instead? Or, if you want to swear in front of a kid, you got to spell it out. So we were going to talk about FEMINISM. You know what I mean? We're going to talk about that. And she's an academic, a specialist in this area. But supposedly on YouTube, you can't use that word. Supposedly. I could be wrong. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know I very little about how YouTube works. I just put videos on here, as I said, for someone to put them. Maybe when Spotify start letting other people, apart from Joe Rogan and a handful of others, put videos on their platform, I'll do that. But I love to think that, like, on a little card somewhere, there is a conversation like an hour of a conversation with someone that's there forever. It's a moment in time, and I can look back, and I can look back. I was gonna say I can look back, but I never listen to my old podcasts ever. If someone referenced something I said a year ago, 2 years ago, I don't know. I might vaguely recall if it was significant, but because the reason I don't listen back is, in the past, I knew all that stuff already. So since then, I've learnt more stuff. So for me to listen back to myself, from the past, is not constructive. To a degree, I'm not going to learn from myself. I find I learn way more from other people and from asking questions. And I think that I have noticed that one of the key parts of doing a podcast, especially when you're being recorded, it's like you have a little audience there in front of you. So you start to notice, for example, I tend to interrupt people sometimes. And I did it the other day to my neighbour in front of his kid, actually, which is really embarrassing because he was saying something to his kid and I interrupted. And he was too polite to probably pull me up on it. But then I apologised profusely afterwards and said, "Oh, sorry for." But that's, I mean, conversation is awkward. Life, sex, putting the bins out is awkward. Everything nothing is. It's not like a movie where we always say the right thing. And while I love all kinds of mediums and how they can be used, I think podcasting is the most pure, depending how you do it, obviously. I do really like Instagram. I should say, I said a few series episodes ago that social media is evil. And one thing I know I do quite a bit is I'll exaggerate a point to make a point. Say, for example, like when I was younger, I was mugged by someone, right? And it was one guy. If I'm telling the story, I'll say there was two guys, just so I don't sound as weak. Or, well, there was a gang of them. I managed to take care of one, but then the other two put me on the floor, whatever. But sometimes, like, I think maybe we all do that a little bit. That could be called a white lie, potentially, just to make yourself sound a little bit more impressive than you actually are. But what's my point? My point is I said that social media was evil. So I was being a bit sensationalist, if that's the word. And I don't think social media is evil, really. When I re-examined what I said, social media or Instagram, Facebook, like any company, their priority is to get you addicted. That's what a good product does. McDonald's, Starbucks. They're successful because people are addicted to their products. So it's even like alcohol. Alcohol is not bad. It's the reason or the trauma why we drink alcohol or abuse it, more importantly. And I think that's just a case of taking accountability, isn't it? Which I think, I shouldn't say we all should do that. That's another thing as well. It's kind of to speak about yourself in first person as opposed to, that's something I'm trying to practice as well. And also another thing is I'm trying to practice being more positive, as in using positive language. So this is something I noticed at Rach as well, what we do. And I don't know if you do this at home. I'll say to Rach, do you mind making me a cup of tea? And she'll say, no. Hold on, have I got this right? Do you mind making me a cup of tea? Do you mind making me a cup of tea? No. Forget that point. I can't actually think about what I'm trying. I completely see. This is why some podcasters, or should I say YouTubers, even though I'm not a YouTuber really, have the cuts. They're called jump cuts when it goes up, It's because they mess up like that. They realize what they need to say, they cut it, and then they say it perfectly. They don't look like a fool like I just did there. So anyway, moving on swiftly, I, social media is not evil. It's about taking accountability to say that if I am addicted to my phone, me talking about me, it's because I need to fill my life with other things that excite me, and that's simply it. These things are not going anywhere. The thing about Instagram, if you're a yoga teacher or any self-employed person, is it dramatically accelerates the potential for you to succeed. What I mean by succeed is to be self-sufficient. So that's a huge benefit. I mean, if you can, when I first started in teaching, I used to go door to door. I used to put flyers through people's letterboxes, and sorry, tell a lie, I would knock on their door and actually pitch them. Hey, my name's Kevin. I'm doing yoga classes, Pilates classes down the road in the local community centre. Would you like to come? So I had to actually go on foot or to everyone's door and knock on their door. Didn't know the people at all. And then you put posters up, you get them printed out, cost you money, you've got to wait for the printers to open. You put the poster up somewhere, and no one calls you, no one sees it. Your phone rings, it's like, oh, yes, and then it's your mum or someone. You know, it's great to hear from your mum, obviously. But all of that has gone away now with Instagram. Costs you nothing, and you can get to connect with thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in an instant. Actually, on that documentary, The Social Dilemma, it says, if you don't pay for a product, you are the product. Which is like, whoa, holy cow. It's pretty intense, isn't it? Which, I don't know, it sounds a bit more, yes, that's fair enough. And I think that we pay for our convenience with giving up our privacy. And I think that's, I want that convenience. The only thing I don't agree with is selling our information to a third party or giving it to a third party without permission. That's a different kettle of fish. By the way, this is not an advert, but this is water. Can water make a sound? And I started to put some drops in it. They are called concentrates. And if anyone from Concentrates is watching or listening to this, very unlikely. I plan to drink water forever, and I have done it for most of my life. So, you know, you're looking for a little collab. But yeah, they're minerals. See, I distill my water. And when you distill water, essentially what happens is you boil it. It boils up, and all of the crap gets left at the bottom. All the mist then turns into condensation and goes into a big jug. That's a very scientific explanation. But it takes out all the crap, but it also takes out some of the trace minerals. So when you put these concentrates or any brand name trace minerals into your water, it remineralizes it. And the minerals are from the inland Utah Sea. So, cheers. Just spill water on myself. Yeah. Before I forget, because this is the biggest announcement I have so far in recent weeks, I'm going to be doing a teacher training in February, 200-hour online. 60% of it is live, and that's significant because supposedly a lot of teacher trainings are actually pre-recorded, so they're not interactive. This is mostly interactive and live through Zoom, with Tashi Dewa and Carol Murphy. And myself and Carol met. She's actually on, I should have checked this. She's on one of the episodes. If you search the podcast for Carol Murphy, me and her, she's one of my guests. But we did our 300-hour together. She's got 25 years experience. Tashi's similar. they've got tons of experience, and we're going to be collabing via the World Wide Web. So that is really exciting. It's February 15th for 28 days. And yeah, I'm buzzing for that. Having my first one of 2021. So if you want to check that, you can go to my website, kevinboyyoga.ie, and then just to click on teacher training, and you can register your interest, and there's early bird currently available. But yeah, that's really cool. It's cool to do stuff like that, definitely, to be able to collaborate on Zoom. I mean, Tashi lives in Australia. I think she lives in Australia. Yeah, she does, yeah. And Carol lives in Cork. So I live in Dublin. And that to collaborate with people all over the world is really cool, isn't it? But there is no substitute for face-to-face conversation. And this is what this podcast is all about for me. I think it's an art form that can be kept alive as long as we keep meeting people. And I think that if you can continue to keep your mind open, which is what I try to do, and to meet people who don't always agree with what you think. This is a massive one for me. The polarization that's been talked about a lot now, political polarization. I mean, we're heavily influenced here in the Ireland and the UK by American media. And I love America. I mean, as in, I love some of American culture. I grew up listening to, watching He-Man and Superman. And I used to love Back to the Future, Marty McFly. It's kind of embarrassing, really. When I was young, I bought a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Well, my dad bought me a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles skateboard, and then I got on the skateboard and held onto the back of his car as he drove down the road at about 3 miles an hour, and I thought I was like Marty McFly. So there's that. That's American culture for you, but it's great. But I mean, obviously Trump. Again, is that a word you can say? I'm sure you can. I've just said it, so I don't know anymore. Trump he's one of the most polarizing people there has ever been. And I'm not a fan of how he treats people and his lack of empathy and his narcissism. And that's just making things worse, because it's like you either love him or you hate him. And he creates that more than anyone. But the polarization, it's very tempting in life to be comfortable and to only speak to people that agree with what you think, because then it reinforces, oh, okay, I am a good person because I have the right thoughts. I think the right things, whether it be politically, socially, whatever. What I would really want to do, and more and more as I get a bit more confident doing these podcasts, is to meet people that I don't understand the world they're in, the subjects they study, what they teach, and therefore I would like to learn about other things that I don't know about. And also, I really like it. This rarely happens though, where a guest will like push back on something I say, because as I said, God love them. I mean, it's real nerve-wracking when you're being recorded and someone's asking you questions that are unscripted, and quite rare that happens in media. So it would take a lot for the person I'm speaking to actually say, well, actually, I don't agree with what you said, Kev. I think that you should re-examine that. But I'd really like to have guests on that comfortable doing that. And it's not going to happen overnight. I think part of it is going to come down to me as well, because I am a big fan of certain podcasters who will push back on their guests. They'll question their answers, and they'll ask them to qualify, and they'll disagree with them. I think I'm conscious that when people come to especially this is my house, it's not really a neutral setting. So I feel like I want to make them comfortable and at ease, and therefore it's quite difficult to then challenge people while keeping it Platonic's the wrong word. Amicable? Yeah, friendly. So that's a skill that I'm looking to develop, and it will take some practice. But let me take another little sip. The good thing about this stuff, is that you drink less water because it hydrates you more. Essentially, it's like salt and minerals. So that's kind of interesting. You don't think about, when you think about water, you're like, oh, I just drink whatever 3 liters a day, whatever the recommended daily allowance is as opposed to what the quality of the water is like. Like when you distill water, my God, the stuff you see at the bottom of the tank is disturbing. It's like brown gunk. It's all gooey, and that would otherwise, if it wasn't distilled, be going into our body. And that's from Dublin City Council, which I'm sure is better than most public water supplies, but still pretty concerning. Conversation. So yeah, I'm not going to do Zoom calls. If that's what the future it says we're going to do, and we've got to stay in the house, we can never visit is, then to hell with the future. Yeah, if that's what the what is, I mean, we'll get back to normal, but I could find a loophole here and say, well, this is kind of like my work. So, well, actually, the government has said verbatim, no house visits. Only exceptions would be for compassionate reasons, or care, or childcare, and this covers none of that. But I could. I mean, I don't think it's against the law to have people in your house, but out of respect for particularly friends I have that work in healthcare, who have said to me personally, who I know, okay, if we're going to go into another lockdown, as in level 5, if people don't follow the rules. And because you hear one news story about what's happening, another news story that can be conflicting. What I really care about, and I know it's anecdotal evidence, but is what my friends that are working in the actual local hospitals, excuse me, I didn't pick my nose there, I just scratched the inside of my nose, it's a big difference, work in the hospitals, what their experience is. And it's not good. So could be supposedly level 5 by the end of this month. We'll see. I've got an itchy nose, I need to scratch it. Oh, I've got a mask here and I can scratch out a mask. There we go. Sorry, that probably wasn't great viewing, but I guess I should wrap this up because I've made my main announcements. The key was, well, firstly, the teacher training, February. The second was this podcast is on pause. And the third is that I'm really looking forward to welcoming new guests. I've got an itchy nose. What does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to have a fight? Hopefully not. I've got I'm really looking forward to having new guests and revisiting guests on the podcast as well, because it's really cool the way it gives you an excuse to basically meet people. Like if I reached out to someone and goes, hey, do you want to fancy come to my house for a cup of tea? I'm like, you weirdo. But when you can say, do you want to come and do a podcast? And people are kind of think that's quite novel. Listen, my nose is way too itchy now, so this must be a sign from the gods or something that I need to do something. Or I definitely need to start this podcast because I can't be scratching my nose excessively on camera. It wouldn't be very nice or very enjoyable audio. Right, well, that is all from me. The platform is alive and well, so you can join that. All links will be below, whether that's in the show notes or in the YouTube comments and descriptions. And if you did enjoy this podcast, and you want to know when the next episode is going to be, then you can subscribe and you can share it with a friend. And you can also leave a review on Apple Podcasts, because that actually really helps. Sometimes when I'm feeling down, I look back, maybe this is a bit pathetic, but I look back on my Apple reviews And oh, that's the dog barking, and then barking again, and it cheers me up. And yeah, you need that, you need, because sometimes you feel like you're going mad. I feel like I'm going mad. I'm sitting here in my little alcove and talking, and you're like, it's nice to. Everyone wants support, don't they? And that's actually another thing. I feel support people a bit more. This might sound minor, but I rarely would like someone's Instagram post, for example, or I would rarely leave comments on post. But I'm going to start doing that a bit more, even though I'm trying to be on my phone less. I think that, and as well as that, I'm okay, I would say, if I had to rate myself, at speaking, having one-to-one conversations. But my texting ability is really not great. My ability to communicate via text. I realised that when I first started dating Rach, she seemed to regularly think that I was in a mood, because she would ask me a question with a few smiley faces and love hearts, whatever, and I would just say yeah, or no, or when. Monosyllabic responses, no emojis, definitely no GIFs. But when people don't know you, they've never met you, that can seem quite blunt. It can seem like you're being quite cold. So I'm trying to get in the habit now of using way more emojis. And if in doubt, especially if it's your partner, throwing a kiss. I mean, Rach knows me now, obviously. So I just throw in a kiss, just in case. And I'll also throw in a kiss for certain people. So, well, like my friend Leon, who was on the podcast last week, I'll throw him in a kiss, because we have that kind of relationship. Some of my kind of bro mates, close mates, I'll throw in a kiss. If it's a female that I know well and we're pally and she's pal at Rach, I might throw in a kiss here and there, especially if it's like a happy birthday or whatever like that. But generally speaking, putting in kisses is probably a bit weird. The X's, putting in X, should I say. So using emojis is the way I'm going to go now. More emojis, if in doubt, put an emoji in, and also throwing the odd GIF as well. So yeah, trying to improve my text communication style. Right, okay. The dog is barking now, and you know what? The dog has actually been good as gold, but he needs to be taken out, because we don't have a garden, you see, so we can't just let him out in the garden. I've got to take him out outside. And now that we've got a baby as well, she's a month old last week. If he barks too much, she'll cry, and then Rach, it makes it more work for her. So I've got to take the dog out on that note. Hope you have a fabulous week. If you're interested in upgrading your teaching game, you can follow at Upgrade Your Teaching. I'm going to be putting content there every week. I've got a video coming there today, or maybe tomorrow. And obviously the Yoga Life podcast, and my Instagram handle is at Kevin Boyle Yoga. Thank you for watching, for listening. Much love, and until next time, take care.